Ole Miss versus Florida will be the biggest game in the history of the Ole Miss football program, and that has absolutely zero to do with Florida.
You are Locked On Ole Miss, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the Locked On Ole Miss podcast, the most watched Ole Miss podcast out there. I'm your host, Stephen Willis, a 10-year veteran member of the national media with Yahoo Sports and a former Ole Miss staff member as well. On today's show, Lane Kiffin held his Monday press conference, and while it was a fairly routine thing, he did shed some light on what the team will be focusing on heading into the Citadel this week. This game is going to be all about Ole Miss sharpening itself for what could be the biggest matchup in program history. When you consider everything that's on the line and what it truly represents, man, it's going to be massive. Add in the noise that is swirling around from the Florida point of view, and you can see how that could impact the Ole Miss fan base. And you've got a primetime game that promises to be absolutely fascinating. We'll be here for all of it, breaking it down, every single angle. Let's get weird. All of this and more on today's Locked On Ole Miss podcast. Remember, we're free and available on all the podcast apps and on YouTube. Thank you for making Locked On Ole Miss your first listen every day, and a special hello to the insiders and everydayers who make this show what it is. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. We'll start off the show just by letting everybody know we're not going to be talking about basketball because there was a live stream last night. If you want to hear about the basketball game, tune in for the live stream to see exactly what went on, and congratulations to Coach Yo for a blowout victory as well. Now, this game against the Florida Gators on November 15th has a chance to be the biggest game in Ole Miss football history. And that isn't because of anything dealing with Lane Kiffin's job nebulousness, I guess. And, you know, when you look at what could happen, that is not factoring into this at all. Without that noise, this is the biggest game in Ole Miss football history, and that is because of what it means. The South Carolina game was absolutely massive. I pointed out it was the biggest win for Ole Miss since the 60s. If Ole Miss beats the Citadel on Saturday, which they likely will, they'll be 9-1 for the first time, I think, since the 60s. And that sets up a 2-game stretch to where if you win both of those games, you'll either have a bye playing your first game in the Sugar or Orange Bowl or whichever bowl is hosting during round of 8 weekend, or you are going to host a home playoff game against Notre Dame or Oregon or Virginia or any of those schools. Absolutely fascinating stuff. And because of that, every game that Ole Miss wins, meaning is added on to the next game that they play. And now the next game that they will play after the Citadel are the Florida Gators. Now, Ole Miss should be a 7 to 10 point favorite in that game. Ole Miss should be the favorite by a magnitude of a lot, honestly. You have Dallas Wilson out for the season. He's not going to play in that game. I don't know if there's an injury or he's just sitting out trying to preserve his red shirt. I do not know what's happening there, but Ole Miss should be okay in that front. They still have Eugene Wilson, who is a really good wide receiver, but Dallas Wilson is the difference maker. He single-handedly opened up the Texas Longhorns. So this game is massive. It's huge. It's a game that if Ole Miss wins that game, the game in Starkville just becomes a coronation. You're going to the college football playoff if you beat the Citadel and Florida. And Florida, make no mistake, that's a talented team. That's a very good defense. Ole Miss is going to have to work for that game. They just are. They're going to have to work for that game. And when you look at what that exactly means, Ole Miss needs to start preparing, in my opinion, right now for the Florida Gators. And I do not think they're doing that. Lane Kiffin in his weekly press conference talked about how they're working on making themselves better, which means they're going to have physical practices on Tuesday and Wednesday. They're going to try to do some good versus good. They don't practice a lot at Ole Miss, but whenever they do, they're going to get after it, and they're going to try and get everything ready for this Florida game. This Florida team can struggle. DJ Lagway will throw you the ball. He's a difficult person to bring to the ground. You need to make sure you can handle it. But the best player on that team is Jaden Baugh at running back. And he flexed out against the Georgia Bulldogs. They used him all over the field. And we'll see exactly what that looks like. This game for the Ole Miss Rebels is the biggest game in program history, at least during my lifetime, and likely during the lifetime of anybody like 65 and less. It's the biggest game in program history. You have to figure out how to get past the Florida Gators. You have to figure out how to do all of the stuff that is there for the taking for this Ole Miss football team. Against South Carolina, they came out, pressure was obviously weighing on them. They started out very slow. Now, they were so much better than South Carolina, which was a completely garbage team, that they were able to turn it around. And by the second half, they were just handing the ball to Kewan Lacey because they knew that there was no chance that South Carolina was going to score the football. The big play to Nick Harbor had already happened. But the point of this is the pressure was getting to the Ole Miss team in the early parts of the game. You can't afford to do that against the Florida Gators. It's a unique occurrence to be in this position, and what you need to be is a front runner. A good start is important. Trinidad Chambliss has to be on. You have to take care of the football. You can't muff a punt against Florida. You need to go down, score a touchdown, and go up 7-0, get a stop, and go down and score another and watch them quit. It's an interim coach. It's a tale older than time. That is the path forward for Ole Miss. What you don't want to have happen in this game is exactly what happened in the South Carolina game, to where you're down 7-0 in the first quarter. This Florida defense is really, really good, and scoring on them is going to be difficult. Ron Roberts has had Lane Kiffin's number throughout his career, whether he was at Baylor, whether he was at Auburn, or whether he's at Florida. He has done a good job against the Ole Miss offense in every single location. It will be up to Lane Kiffin to figure out what's going on with this Florida offense. Maybe the addition of Joe Judge, maybe Trinidad Chambliss spreading the ball around, maybe all of that will help. But everything is at Ole Miss's fingertips still, including SEC championship, if we're going to be real about it. SEC championship, Heisman Trophy. I think I saw an On3 that Trinidad Chambliss was 5th on their Heisman poll. Everything is at Ole Miss's fingertips. And that's going to be on November 15th that you're going to play meaningful games. Every football game that Ole Miss plays this season will be meaningful from this point on. You include the Citadel because you need a win in the Citadel to get to the stretch. If you get through the Citadel, which you likely will, you have Florida, you have Mississippi State. Every game is meaningful. The playoff is completely on the table for the Ole Miss Rebels. And that is the interesting thing going on. That is what makes this the most massive football game in the Ole Miss program history. We're talking about it now because it is that massive. It is that huge. Getting through the Citadel, expect some sloppy play. It's going to look weird at times. Citadel runs some stuff that is very 1990s Mississippi high schoolish, and I don't mean that as an insult. You're going to see some fullback bellies. You're going to see all kinds of stuff running the ball. I think they run the wing tee or something like that. Don't be surprised about anything. Don't be surprised if it is sloppy, but Ole Miss is inevitably going to win that game. Ole Miss has a better team than the Citadel Bulldogs. Ole Miss has a better team than the Florida Gators. Ole Miss has a better team than the Mississippi State Bulldogs. Honestly, there's nobody that could appear on the schedule that I'd walk into and say, Ole Miss can't win that game. And that includes Ohio State. That includes Indiana. This Ole Miss team can beat anybody on their schedule. And it starts with this massive football game between the Ole Miss Rebels and the Florida Gators. And that game is going to take place on November 15th at 6 p.m. Central on ESPN. It is going to be a monumental game. And the magnitude has absolutely nothing to do with the opponent in the game. It doesn't matter if it would have been South Carolina, LSU, Mississippi State, Vanderbilt. It didn't matter who Ole Miss was playing in the spot. The magnitude would be the same because of what it means. This one is all about the Rebels and the moment that is at their feet. This is the chance to prove that the program can kick in that college football playoff door and make a national statement in November. As good friend Houston Nutt used to say, they remember November, and this one is shaping up to be absolutely unforgettable. We'll break down why this matchup means so much beyond the standings, and we'll touch the job interview stuff, the job stuff as well. All of that is coming up next. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you miss a start of a game or you just want to ride a hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to the fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine those live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at an even bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team is making that late push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com and sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Do us a favor, like, subscribe, comment on the video, give us a 5-star review on whichever audio podcatcher you're listening to, and subscribe to the podcast there as well. It costs absolutely nothing, but it helps keep all of this for free. And Locked On is getting ready to change the game. You may have noticed we had David Johnson giving recruiting updates on the subtext. We have Dalen Flowers giving updates from the game on the subtext. All of this is part of the All Access plan that is coming in December, about a month away. Those people are going to help us out from time to time, so don't forget to check that out. More information when it becomes available. And don't forget to check out a second listen on the network. Nearly every team, college or pro, is ready for you. So that should be pretty interesting indeed. Now, this game, we talked about all the reasons why this is a spicy game for Ole Miss without the Lane Kiffin job stuff. But now, throw the Lane Kiffin job stuff and the way that Florida fan has acted on social media, and that raises the game up even a little bit more. It was already the most massive game in Ole Miss football history. Now you add this stuff to where there's going to be animosity in that stadium. I do not feel good for Florida fans that are planning on making that a trip. Do not count on the hospitality state to be hospitable that night. I expect them to be treated pretty poorly if we're going to be completely honest about it. And that a lot of that is how this is all went down. As soon as Florida fired Billy Napier, everybody started acting like it was just a done deal that Lane Kiffin was going to go to Florida. Even though when you look at everything and you start playing the logic games and all of this stuff, you kind of realize that it's not Ole Miss fans that are overreading into tea leaves on whether or not Lane Kiffin will stay or not. That's different than the 2022 Auburn search. We talked about that last week. It's the Florida fans that's like, okay, he is going to sign something secretly, and the GM's going to be put in place, and it's going to be totally hush-hush, and the program's going to get to work in the month of December. It doesn't matter if Ole Miss makes the playoffs, he's going to be fine. See, that is the type of logic that we're hearing right now. Ole Miss fans simply are saying, if Ole Miss makes the playoffs, he's going to continue to focus on Ole Miss all the way through. He learned a lesson. He's not really somebody that can multitask. You saw that during Alabama's championship game appearance in, what was it, 2016? Something like that. So when you look at the tea leaves and everything's going on, it's not the Ole Miss fans that are grasping straws and saying, hey, this is going to work because of this. No, Ole Miss fans are acting pretty normally, and overall, they've been pretty calm. You still have a few sky is falling chicken littles, but for the most part, this isn't 2022 at this point. Florida, on the other hand, if they decide that talk themselves in that he's coming, which there's been nothing that points the direction that he would say that. He might, who knows, but there's nothing actionable that you've seen from Lane Kiffin to make you worry about his job performance at this point. So Florida doing that, coming here, there's a rumor we saw on the Discord that popped up that said Florida boosters are buying up tickets in the Florida section to go to the game. They're going to try and go up there because this is a show of something. It's like, okay, you're going to travel to visiting opponents with tickets that were allotted to you. That's not saying anything other than the fact that you couldn't sell the tickets without having to do a mass buying. But the way it is situated, the way it looks for Ole Miss football, this game and all of this stacked on top of how huge of a game it already was means that it's going to be absolutely massive. Now, if you look at the fact that it's going to also be a night game on ESPN, that takes it up even more to the point where you can't be surprised at where this football game is going to end up. I'm telling you, this has a chance to hit a fever pitch that I haven't seen since 2017 Mississippi State, the Egg Bowl. And that isn't because of a rivalry game or anything like that. It was because I'm talking about the intensity. That's that, I think that Breland Speaks game where he just waved at the camera after recovering a fumble. You might have seen me wear that t-shirt. That was the first dog pee episode from DK Metcalf, and A.J. Brown, the mayor of Starkville, went off. But that was an intense game. That was coming off of the probation. That was coming off of everything that was important to the Ole Miss Rebel fans going into that game. And this was their opportunity before or after they go on probation or whatever to take their pound of flesh. There's a little bit of that feeling amongst the fan base because of the way the Florida fans have acted on social media over the next couple of weeks. Again, nothing actionable has happened, period. It is all telephone game and rumors and narratives from people. It's not real at this point. Nothing real has happened. And the reason nothing real has happened is because Lane Kiffin doesn't do job searches or anything until the end of the season. After it's all over is when he's going to either sign the extension with Ole Miss or sign with Florida or whatever he's going to do. It will be after. That's the way he's operated for 6 years. That's not going to change now. Now, Florida's going to try and get a memorandum of understanding or something signed so that they can legally say that he's there. But Lane Kiffin's not going to sign anything. Ask Auburn. Lane Kiffin's going to wait and do whatever Lane wants to do and change his mind on a whim if it comes to that. It's just the way he operates. And the fact that you don't understand that, it kind of reminds me like The Dark Knight Rises, like Bane. You visit the dark. I was born in it. This is nothing new. This is the 6th year in a row that this has happened. And the script has played out exactly like the previous 5 years to this point. So add in that with just how massive, how huge, how large this game is going to be. add the coaching stuff, search stuff on top of it, and that creates a special type environment. Picture Ole Miss versus Tennessee 2021. Picture that. Picture Ole Miss versus State 2017. There is going to be some animus in the air between the Ole Miss Rebels and the Florida Gators. Not from the players, but you're going to feel it from the fan. That's going to be a day that the stadium's full like 2 hours before kickoff. That's going to be a day where all of your dreams are set to come true. That is going to be a day to where you can actually affect the thing that you have wanted for several years. That game is massive, the biggest in program history. And it doesn't matter who the opponent is, but it doesn't hurt who the opponent is. So we'll see exactly how that goes as well. In our final segment, Lane Kiffin made it clear from his weekly press conference that this week's focus is surprisingly, it's not on Florida. It's not. It is on Ole Miss and getting better. While everybody outside the building is talking about the matchup and the playoff picture, Lane's message was about something completely different, something that just might define how Ole Miss finishes this stretch. We'll tell you what the real emphasis is inside the Manning Center and why it matters heading into this weekend. It's all coming up next. College football is back, and I could not be more excited. The tailgates, the rivalries, the energy in the stands, there's just nothing like it. But let's be real. Actually getting tickets can feel more like a battle than the game itself. The endless queues, the hidden fees, prices jumping at checkout. That's why I use Game Time, the app that gives the advantage back to fans. It is the easiest way to score last-minute tickets at the best prices with no surprise fees. What you see is what you pay. I pulled up the Game Time app in just a couple of taps. I saw some amazing deals. I'm talking about your favorite college football games for as low as $25. So take the guesswork out of buying college football tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today. All right, when you look at the Lane Kiffin press conference that was held yesterday, it kind of went like you would expect. It was a fairly routine press conference, and there was a lot of talk about the South Carolina Gamecocks and how they got burnt. They had actually a coverage that was perfect for that Nick Harbor touchdown that they just let somebody get deeper than the deepest and ended up being a touchdown. He's a really fast guy. And South Carolina's only offense apparently was, hey, have Lenore Sellers throw it as far as he can and have Nick Harbor run as fast as he can. But Ole Miss messed up on that single play. So Lane Kiffin looked at the film. Defensively, they may have only gave up 230 yards, but a lot of that had to do with Lenore Sellers not being very good as a quarterback. So this week, Ole Miss is going to go and work on itself. That's what Lane Kiffin said. We're going to work on ourselves. We are going to try and get better. They didn't mention the Florida Gators. They didn't mention the Mississippi State Bulldogs, but make no mistake, it was about them. Ole Miss working on themselves, doing some good versus good, spending some time having some physical practices so that they're ready to go when the Florida Gators and the Mississippi State Bulldogs get on their schedule. This Ole Miss football team has a chance to make everybody's dream come true that's an Ole Miss fan. And we know that. We've seen that. But it starts with kind of still trying to push forward. The defensive line has improved so much over the beginning of the year. You've seen these young guys grow up before your eyes. You saw them figure out stuff at the linebacker position with Andrew Jones having a more pronounced role after the Georgia game. You are seeing them starting to work on the secondary from place to place. And with this defense getting better as the season goes on, and the offense kind of doing its best, consistency routine, even when an offense is having a night off like it did in this game. Of course, a night off for this Ole Miss offense, they still scored 30 points, by the way. But even when they have that night off, you don't have to worry because the defense can play. And when Ole Miss gets the Florida Gators, make no mistake, Jaden Baugh and those guys, they can physically run the football. They were the first team that can physically run the football that Ole Miss has played since Georgia. Before then, it was Arkansas, and you saw how those games looked. Ole Miss really needs to work to lock up Jaden Baugh and to make DJ Lagway's life a little bit of a living hell. If you can do that, you are going to be okay. You are going to likely win the game, especially with Dallas Wilson not playing. Dallas Wilson's more of a threat than Eugene Wilson. Eugene Wilson's a good receiver, but both of the Wilsons, that can be a problem. This atmosphere is going to be electric and unmatched in the annals of Ole Miss history. People are going to write stories about this atmosphere. And knowing what's going on, I feel really good about the Citadel. I feel good about Florida, and I feel good about the Mississippi State Bulldogs. Granted, now all those games you should be about a 10-point favorite in, but it is what it is at this point. So thank you for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your go-to source for Ole Miss sports. We pride ourselves on offering the most comprehensive perspectives, which is why we're the front door of Ole Miss. If you don't believe me, Google Ole Miss podcast and see how much we come up. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment. It helps the show, and it is absolutely free. Your support means the world to us. Thank you also for making Locked On Ole Miss your first listen today. For your second listen, check out Locked On SEC. Chris Gordy breaks down the best conference in college sports, from the rivalries to the championship and every game in between. Find Locked On SEC on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Hotty toddy, everybody. Remember, analytics are just the old English word that means bad football. We'll see you tomorrow.